And welcome to Weather and Ag in Focus on this Thursday, April 10th. Temperatures outside in the low 40s. A lot of clouds around. There's a few sprinkles out there as well. But no widespread rain, and conditions will improve as we head into tomorrow. I'm Chief Meteorologist Dean Wysocki, along with our Ag Director, Bridgette Readel. And Bridgette, how's your day treating you so far?
Looks like things are going just fine out there, although I see other people have sunshine. Is that possible? Where are those people?
West of the valley. So if you go
I see.
you go out west of the valley, we've got some clearer skies. Those will be moving in as we head into the overnight hours, and that's going to lead. I'll tell you, we've been saying it all week that Friday is going to be the pick day of the week, and I'll tell you, if you have a hooky day, you might want to use that tomorrow. But for today, this is a good day to stay inside. Not much nice weather outside, although it's not snowing, so I guess you can consider it nice. We're looking at temperatures topping out today right around 50 with quite a bit of cloud cover. Those skies will clear out tonight. We'll drop down to 30 with light winds, and Friday looks to be an absolute beauty. Plenty of sunshine. We'll start off the day with light winds, but see those winds increase as we head towards evening out of the south-southeast with highs around the lower 60s. And then we're in the mid-upper 60s on Saturday. It doesn't look as windy now as it previously looked earlier in the week. So a halfway decent day on Saturday. We'll have more cloud cover. And then Sunday we'll see scattered showers enter the area with highs in the upper 50s to low 60s. And as cold air rushes in Sunday night into Monday morning, we could see a few wet snowflakes mixed in, but no accumulation out of that. So we're going to start off the week on the chilly side next week. But by Thursday and Friday, we're in the 60s. And it looks like Easter weekend, if you have any plans, any travel plans going through the northern plains, whether it be North, South Dakota, or Minnesota, the weather is going to cooperate. We don't have to worry about any big snows, no travel disruptions, although we do see some showers, maybe thunderstorms coming into the area Easter Sunday. But other than that, if you have any travel plans nearby, it looks A-OK. Anytime you could see that during a holiday, that's pretty good news.
Well, I would say so. Folks always want to make sure because this would not be the first time we've had a blizzard right around Easter. And it's not uncommon for us to see this happening in the month of April to begin with. It just is fairly normal to what happens in this region. So we'll make it through. We always do.
Yeah. And we've been spoiled. You know, we had the one storm this month. That was it. And now, according to the LRC, we've got a couple more before the month is done. I think the month is going to end on a stormy note, leading to a stormy start to the month of May as well. So one of those storms towards the end of the month, more than likely going to give snow to the state. Now, typically, once you get towards the end of April, it usually favors the western part of the state. But it's something we'll definitely keep a close eye on. I hope the snow is done, but funny feeling. I just think we're going to get something before the month is over. Let's hope not. But either way, we need the moisture, and our moisture chances do increase that third and fourth week of this month. So that's good news there.
Well, and you say storms, but realistically, it might just be mild precipitation. We know there's a disturbance, but we don't know that it's going to be anything vicious, you might say.
Correct. So what's going on in the ag world today, Bridgette? Any good news?
There's a couple things. Horses sometimes can have stress and anxiety. Maybe they too have been thinking about their 401k this week. Not all of them, but some perhaps. And so, it's only about 10 to 15% of horses that can actually see a concern. And that's a time to call your veterinarian. They may act out. Additionally, horses can't tell you what hurts. So if there's pain that's adding to their stress, etc., it's best to try to solve that problem, get an example of what's going on with them, maybe have to, again, talk to the veterinarian. There are no medications specifically licensed for behavior in horses. They are human medications that you can have prescribed by a veterinarian to administer to a horse. So, in case you are wondering, if your horse needs it, they can take Xanax or Valium for anxiety. That's if you, again, have your horse examined by a veterinarian. You can also take Trazodone for sleep, because some horses actually are really lethargic. They're not, you just don't see the energy out of them, etc., which affects their metabolism and so much more. And yes, you can give them that particular sleep aid to help them get better REM sleep, because horses get it. They need REM sleep too. Now, norepinephrine, which is sold under the label I think it's Dormosid, Dormoso, Dormosedan. Dormosedan. Okay, sorry, had to sound that one out like I'm a second grader. But it's actually a mild sedative that can be also used for anxiety. So, if your horse is unusual or something doesn't seem to be quite right, you really can talk to your veterinarian because you can get some of those medications for horses as well.
Interesting. I didn't know there
Yeah,
was
I'm
a
thinking not
depression
everybody was
problem.
aware. There can be not necessarily depression, stress and anxiety.
Sure.
Stress and
All right,
anxiety.
what could a horse be
So
stressed about or anxiety? What are they worried about?
if you get a horse and you have them in new pastures, you've moved them to a new place, they have other animals around them that they're unfamiliar with. It's kind of
Ah.
like putting a kid in a new school, right? Those things can make a difference to them. Now, if you don't have a horse, maybe you've been thinking about this whole backyard chicken thing. All right, let's focus on the fact that chickens are a good idea. There's roughly about 11 million chickens being raised in backyards all across the US right now. They're not in commercial flocks, but I caution you before you trot off to TSC to bring home chicks, unlike the ones Dean brought home in college, you might want to think about. You thought I wasn't going to get in that in there.
I'm like, oh, I think I
Okay.
know where she's going.
Yep. So it takes a lot of time. If you thought that I'm going to just get some chicks for my kids to raise, remember they have to be fed and watered daily. Even if you have automatic feeders, those types of things have to be checked, refilled. You need to make sure that you're cleaning out the coop or whatever area they're in. But even before you get that far, have you checked with your local community to see if they allow them in your backyard, because there are some communities where you can't have chickens. Chickens also need roughly 2 to 4 feet of space per bird. So if you have a tiny backyard, they're not going to work well there. You're going to need more space for those chickens. Some of the coops are pretty cool. They can be stationary and permanent, or there can be coops that actually have a yard attached to them that's covered, and they're on wheels and you can move them around the yard so that they can graze in different areas. Predators though, because if you have chickens, somebody else thinks you opened a buffet, and it doesn't even have to be a coyote. Weasels, they'll go after them. Skunks will go after chickens. They'll be a predator to them, and it's not what comes down by the ground, it's what comes overhead. There's a reason they're called chicken hawks, because they will come after those birds. So you need to be able to provide protection, not just shelter, food, and water, but protection for them. New baby chicks, when they come home for the first couple weeks, they can't actually regulate their own body heat. They need to be in an area where you can keep them about 90 to 95 degrees, so it looks like little chicken wings baking on a beach. And then you transition them a little more outdoor. So if you're thinking ahead about maybe bringing chickens into your backyard, into your family, think some of those things through. If you know other folks who have chickens, don't wear your chicken shoes to their house. And I know that sounds a little silly, but if you have wild birds that stop in your yard, they can pass bird flu onto your chickens. Then, due to saliva and droppings from your chickens, you can take that to the neighbors and leave it behind with their flock. And that's how the infestation from one place to the other can happen. So for good biosecurity, you don't wear your shoes from one place to the other. Hog farmers are like that. They don't wear the same boots from one hog farm to another. So things that you might want to keep in mind, but also don't hug your chickens. Look, chickens are animals. This is not a Disney movie. Put them down, leave them outside. They shouldn't be on the couch with you watching a movie. That's not a good spot for your chickens. Just saying.
So
I know you can't even talk.
No, I can't.
He's using a lot of self-control right now, Bridgette. You have no idea.
So, Bridgette.
Don't.
Hey, nope. So, Bridgette.
I started it.
You did start it, but I'm not going down that road anyway. I know there's a lot of people that think that free-range chickens are more nutritional than commercially raised chickens. How true is that statement? Because I know a lot of people think that.
I think it depends what you feed them. I've seen some backyard flocks that could use some help in their nutrition. When folks in the pandemic were saying, "Well, the feed I'm buying is terrible. It's not doing a great job." Well, you have to read the bags because it might not have been the right age group for that chick. So if you're feeding them the wrong thing, it's not going to be helpful for their egg laying process. So I think eggs are a great healthy source of protein to begin with. Even though we were all told, like in the late 80s, early 90s, they were going to raise our cholesterol and kill
Right.
everybody. Ha, we're still here. So I think no matter what, eggs are healthy. If you feel that your free range chickens are more nutritious, that's entirely up to you. But the reality is, those that are raised in commercial flocks have nutritionalists and veterinarians working with them to make sure that they're taken care of at their best levels. And I have no problem with either one.
Okay.
I really don't. It's like the grass fed or the corn fed beef argument. You can choose whichever one's your favorite. They're both nutritionally sound. Just keep eating beef. I'm happy with that idea.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Well, we've got a guest waiting in the wings here, Bridgette. We've got Amanda Olson that's coming on with us.
We do. Amanda is with the North Dakota Department of Education, and we're going to talk about the Farm to School Food Network. And especially after so many things have been happening with DOGE, federally, et cetera, Amanda's going to tell us what this program is, how it's been working in North Dakota, and kind of what the future holds for such program. But I can say that bringing local foods into schools seems like a great idea to me. We'll talk about that and so much more after the markets with the American Ag Network. And welcome back to Weather and Ag in Focus. Remember, technology is supposed to make your farm run smoother, not give you more headaches. If you're having those, if you're concerned, what if there's a hacker in your midst and you need to make sure that things are being taken care of? That's when you call Chris Sherman over at techsupportfarm.com. He will help you. They provide support 24/7. And especially when you're busy planting or harvesting, he can be taking care of the background for you. So give him a call. While we are having our conversation today with our guest, Amanda is joining us from the Department of Public Education, Amanda Olson. We're going to talk about the farm to school coordinator job that she's in. You can give us a call to ask questions on the JLA Insurance phone line. You can reach us there at 701-293-9000. In case you missed my lecture on don't bring your chickens in the house, stop hugging them, you're more than welcome to follow up by watching us on our Facebook and YouTube live streams. You can find us there, Weather and Ag in Focus, as well as on Acres TV. And I know you all think I sound like I'm crazy, but seriously, put the chicken down. Stop it.
Okay. How many people are hugging their chickens? I didn't know this was something that needed to be.
Have you not hugged a chicken, Dean?
I have never hugged a chicken. I'm sorry.
Okay, Instagram. Not kidding. People are constantly dragging their chickens around on Instagram. I have a plastic Fisher Price chicken. That's the best I got. I'm not taking the real one.
Okay. I have chickens at home, and I can't even pick them up. So I'm very impressed that people are actually able to pick them up and hold them. I have 4 chickens at home, and I can't even get them. I can't even catch them to pick them up.
Oh, Amanda, this is such a great lead-in. Okay, so hold on before we get to your actual job. Do you have a coop? Are they free range? What's going on with your chicken situation?
So we have a coop, and we had quite a few more chickens, and we tried to do the free range around our yard. We live on a farm. My husband and I grow soybeans, canola, all of that. So we wanted some chickens to add in, and we have a little daughter to add in that little extra hobby. And we tried the free range, but, coyotes love chickens. Owls love chickens. So our coop, our herd of chickens has...
Your flock?
Yeah, our flock. Thank you. See, I'm not a big chicken farmer. Have been dwindled down to 4. So they are in the coop now for their safety. So...
That's a really good safety point. I've seen a weasel get into a chicken coop, and it's like a massacre. It's a terrible scene.
It is.
Yes. Yeah. CSI would show up for that kind of thing and just say, what happened here?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Well, so those chickens, Amanda, are you raising them to take to the local school? What are you doing? Tell us more about this program.
I would love to. However, so in order to sell your eggs to an institution, like whether it's daycares, whether it's public or private schools, there is some requirements for that. You do need to have an egg dealer license. I didn't name it. The Department of Ag named it. But it's a very cheap license. It's only $10. You register through North Dakota Department of Agriculture, and you're subject to yearly inspection. So if you wanted to sell your eggs, we have a ton of people in North Dakota that are doing that. They have a lot of backyard flocks that are trying to do that. If you're looking to make some income, schools are looking for things like that. Daycares want to purchase that. But it does require licensing for that. I am not doing that in the process of, I just don't have enough egg production, as well as I want to make sure my time is devoted to schools in other ways and connecting producers that, need it for their bottom line.
So interesting that you say that about a lot of folks doing it. There's somewhere in the neighborhood of 11 million chickens being raised outside of commercial flocks. That's a huge number when you think about it. Amanda has 4.
Yep, I have 4.
From there.
Yeah, okay. That's like 0.0000% of the population.
So tell us more about this farm to school program, Amanda. I mean, what should folks be knowing about it? How long has it been in existence?
So the overall farm to school program nationwide has really been happening since the 90s. Vermont, California, those types of states that do a lot of the vegetable and fruit production, they really kind of came on board with that. In North Dakota, we really hit the ground running in 2015. But what a lot of people need to know is that farm to school is a new term for something that North Dakota has already been doing, even Minnesota, for a long time. We're, number 1 in agriculture education. We think about all of our schools, our daycares, all of our children are learning about agriculture in some way or another pretty much every single day, whether that's in the classroom or in FFA, 4-H, groups like that. So really, it's applying a new term to something that North Dakota is really a veteran at, essentially. one of the key components of adding into that, besides the education, is helping schools and daycares purchase more local foods that can be served to kids. That could be at lunch, that could be at snack, breakfast, whatever it is. Maybe it's during a summer school program or summer feeding sites. So really my role is to help schools and daycares connect with local producers to increase that amount of local purchasing. Another really key thing into the education portion is a lot of schools and daycares are looking at incorporating school gardens. So having garden places, whether they're outside or whether maybe they're like a hydroponic tower in the 6th grade science room or 7th grade science room, there's a lot of ways to make farm to school work. And so really our goal is to enhance that and increase that and making sure that we're, giving the resources and capacity to those that want to incorporate more in their communities.
And Amanda, I have a couple of questions. Have you guys done any studies on how this, like down the road? And where I'm going is, I wish we had this as kids growing up, because we probably would have eaten a little healthier, made better choices when it comes to food. Has there been any studies done, like let's say over the last 10 to 20 years?
Yes.
How has this affected the kids in terms of health? I mean, has it gotten better for them?
It has gotten better. So recently, North Dakota school districts participated in the 2023 USDA Farm to School Census that's done through USDA. And they showed basically in North Dakota schools, if they're able to have, more local food showing, some education, nutrition education, they actually increased their vegetable and fruit and consumption by 43%. In addition, when we're working with those fresh type of products, the school staff that are cooking our meals for our kids are a little happier too, right? It's a little bit more fun to cut in and bite into something that's a little bit more fresh looking. But yeah, we've actually increased vegetable and fruit consumption by 43% according to our USDA Farm to School Census.
That's great. Now, you are funded by the government, right?
Correct.
So with all the Doge cuts, how is this affected?
Hold on. How much? Wait, Dean.
Sure.
On this, what's her split there on federal to state funding?
Oh, yes. Good point. Okay. Yes, I work for the state of North Dakota through the Department of Public Construction. I'm in the department, our Child Nutrition and Food Distribution Office. We oversee all child nutrition programs, whether they're state or federal. That includes like National School Lunch Program. So I'm matched from the state. So I'm considered a state employee. That's where kind of the match comes from. I get the benefits of being a state employee and have access to all of that. In addition, the funding for like the salary of my position and then the extra activities and programming that I bring out for Farm to School is covered by USDA. And that's a state formula grant. And essentially a lot of states applied for that grant for a position like mine, a Farm to School coordinator, essentially at a state level to help, build infrastructure, build the network to increase Farm to School in their state. So my Farm to School grant that oversees my salary has not been cut. That was done in 2022. I've been hired since beginning of 2023. So my funding for my position essentially runs out towards the end of 2026. Okay. Now, to your point of the Doge cuts, our state of North Dakota was going to receive just about $2.8 million in local foods for schools and childcare, and that was through the Agriculture Marketing Service of USDA as well. And that essentially was a non-competitive grant that would have helped schools and daycares purchase local foods. And so we had the application in, but we never received any funding in our office. So it's not like we had to cut any contracts with producers that we were going to work with, or it's not like we already sent out money to schools and daycares and had to take that back. It's like we had our application in and then the program was cut and then they're just not going to review the application because it no longer exists, the program.
But that's still $2.8 million that you're missing out on.
Yeah. And I know, and it would have been the first time we took that funding. It really would have moved the needle on Farm to School. As much as we want to have schools and daycares purchase local, it still tends to be, a little bit more expensive. And that's okay. I mean, producers deserve the money for the hard work they put in. We think about cattle ranching. They are doing a lot of work to make sure that we have yummy beef in our state of North Dakota. So it's not like we don't want them to get the pay that they deserve, but we're trying to figure out that middle ground of where we can meet funding to help support both.
Okay.
All right. Well, that spurs a lot of questions for all of us. And again, for those who are listening and want to call in with questions for Amanda, you can reach us at 701-293-9000. That's the JLA Insurance phone line. Bottom of the hour news is here right now, and we will return momentarily to keep talking with Amanda. Welcome back into Weather Nag in Focus. The conversation we are having today with Amanda Olson from North Dakota Department of Education has been outstanding. And we're talking about the Farm to School program that has been going on in the state for some time. I believe Amanda said North Dakota really got invested and involved in about 2015. And okay, so some of the questions I might want to ask of this, Amanda. What products can people give to their schools? And maybe I shouldn't say give, sell to their schools. Does it have to be something raw like potatoes or beef? Can it be finished product, jams, honey? breads, that type of thing?
Yeah. So there's actually a yes answer to both of your questions. So depending on where you're at in your public health district, for example, in Fargo-Cass, you can actually donate, say you're a abundance gardener and you have extra zucchini in the month of August, like we all do, right? Maybe you feel free to contact your school nutrition professional and ask them, maybe they need some more zucchini. You can donate that. If it's in a good quality form, it's something you're proud that children are going to eat, you can. There are, produce items that you can be donating to schools or daycares as well. But thinking about other products, so typically we're thinking of things that meet guidelines is unprocessed, or if it's like meat and, those types of things. But honey is totally fine. We are the number one producer, right, of North Dakota honey. So we have a lot of schools that are purchasing honey, maybe using them for their biscuits in the morning. But there's also a lot of processed products that, we're proud to have in our state. When we think about our commodity groups, we think about things like the North Dakota Mill, pasta growers, they all grow various things. So there are some concerns that it has to make sure it fits the USDA meal pattern to make it a reimbursable meal for that school. But really the idea is we can work with a lot of different things. It doesn't have to just necessarily be fruits and vegetables. There are finished products that we do in the state of North Dakota. We think about Cavendish potatoes, right? And so it's not just the raw potato, but their form of, French fries or all of the yummy things that kids love to eat, and still supporting that North Dakota company. Those are things that schools that count as farm to school as well.
And Amanda, can the kids raise their own food in the school greenhouses specifically for the lunchroom?
Yeah, they sure can.
Really?
So there's quite a few different schools that do it in a lot of different ways. Today I was at Jefferson Elementary for Fargo Public, and we did, along with the North Dakota Soybean Council, we did some education about edamame, but I was having this really lovely conversation with their principal, and she was talking about how they're going to be starting a community garden. And really the idea is, obviously to teach how to grow food, all of the gardening wonderful things that you can teach kids about having their hands in dirt, but also potentially as things go on, they could be using those items that they're growing in the garden for snack program or putting on their salad bar during lunch. And so I think really that's kind of their end goal with that. So in where I grew up and where I'm from, Animus Elementary has had a school garden for like 14 years, and they use all of the produce from that school garden in their lunchroom. And often they do things to preserve it throughout the winter so they have access to a little bit more. Thinking about they cut the carrots and they freeze them so they can add them into like a soup or a chili, later on in the year. And some of that too, some of those kids get to take home the extra produce that isn't needed in the school kitchen. So yes, we can definitely be growing our own food at schools. That is totally a thing that is happening. And we are trying to increase that as the state goes on. And daycares do that too. Sometimes they have it as like maybe a sensory garden, but maybe they're growing the grape tomatoes so they can have them at snack time too. So, and it can be indoors. It can be greenhouses. It can be hydroponic gardens that are in classrooms. There's a lot of different ways to grow food, and all of the benefits that come from agriculture education that can be paired with that.
Any fruits being raised? Or is it just mainly veggies?
Well, yeah, we're not a citrus state, right?
No, correct.
Right.
Yeah, that might be a little tough.
Yeah, that's going to be tough. Well, some of the fruits that are commonly grown that are selling to is melons, right? Think about all of our beautiful watermelons and cantaloupes and honeydews. A lot of gardeners grow that. A lot of producers in our state that are doing local produce are doing that. And they're specifically growing for, a special day at the school. So like last year, West Fargo Public partnered with Farm in the Dell in Moorhead. And they grew, corn on the cob. But I think the idea is that potentially if there's enough watermelon, they could be growing watermelon for the school to have like on a special day, like a special farm to school day.
Right.
So
I just learned something,
Okay.
Bridgette. I thought honeydew was a list that the wife gave. It's actually, I didn't know it was a fruit.
Well, for
it's
you
both.
it is.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have one side note because you mentioned Farm in the Dell, and I have a friend who subscribed to a CSA in Fargo not that long ago. So here's a learning moment for everyone. She got her CSA box one day, and she held up this thing. See if you can figure out what it is. It was probably about 18 inches tall, had bracked, there were no leaves on it, but there were those little bract branches that stuck out, and it had little green balls at the joint of the branch to the main stem. She held it up, and it looked suspiciously like the spinal column out of the skeleton we had in our high school biology lab. And she said, "What is this?"
Huh.
Anybody know what that plant was? What
No.
you cut off of there to eat?
Uh-uh.
Brussels sprouts.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Yep,
Yeah.
you
Now I
got the
can
whole column, and then
yeah.
you carve the Brussels sprouts off the main stem in order to eat them. Yeah,
Huh.
Wow.
that's how they grow.
Delicious.
I'll bring a spinal column of Brussels sprouts in later this year after my garden takes off too. So, is there a limit to what people can have or what schools can have coming in locally? Is it anything from fresh milk through, like you said, maybe apples off the
Mhm.
tree in the fall? Anything that we don't have approved, so to speak?
No, there's just a different set of guidelines. So, say you are a family rancher, you're raising cattle, and your local public school district is looking to serve some beef. There are some things that you have to follow as, like, say, a cattle rancher in order to get your beef on the tray at school or in a daycare. And essentially, all that it is that you need to have your beef or poultry, whatever it is, processed at a USDA inspected or a state inspected processing facility. And it can be either or, and we have quite a few around the state that handle both. So that's kind of like the difference. There's a little bit of guidelines that they have to follow, but no, we're not necessarily the least amount of guidelines are for the raw, unprocessed food. That's, the fruits and vegetables that are coming from your garden. So they're just cut fresh in order to take off the vine, and then they go into the school. Now, then when we get in, obviously, into the milk, we get into the beef and the poultry and the eggs. That all has a little bit of extra guidelines to it.
Who do you contact before you show up at the door with a pickup load of hamburger? Who should you have talked to make
Sure.
this transaction happen?
So that's going to look different in every single community. We think about our really, really small districts, and we think of our really, really large districts. So say, for example, in Fargo and West Fargo, you should be contacting, either the administration, that could be the principal, the superintendent, or if you have a connection to the folks that work there in the school cafeteria, you can make that connection with them as well. What I typically do, so I don't want to necessarily make people feel like I have to be the middleman in order for that process to happen. But what I always offer is that I can be assistance, that if you are running in trouble or don't know how to contact the school, that's where you can really reach out to me. And that's where I can make that connection and build that network and that relationship for you. And that's actually probably my favorite part of the job. So, essentially, in a small school, you probably know who's working in that kitchen. You probably know the principal. He probably was the same principal, or she was the same principal maybe you had when you were a kid, or same thing with the superintendent. So you typically, have that connection. It's a little bit less far. So, in some of our bigger districts, if you're looking to reach out to them and don't know who to contact, definitely reach out to me. But there's no proper or like absolute protocol that you have to do it this way or this way or this way. And that's kind of the beautiful thing about Farm to School. It's not a mandated or required program. It's there for communities to create it in a way that works best for them, because we all have access to different things. So I think that's kind of the beautiful thing about Farm to School, is that everybody's going to use it in a different way, and that's just absolutely fine.
Right. And Amanda, how many states, I hope you say all of them, but how many states have the Farm to School program?
All of them.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
good.
all of them. And it all varies in different things. We think about California and the produce that they have. Obviously, it's going to look a little bit different. Recently, I was in Denver. Even their Farm to School program looks a little bit different. We think about school gardens. Well, they have nonprofit organizations that go to each school and run their school gardens. So there's, somebody always there tending the garden over the summer. That's not how it kind of works in North Dakota. We're kind of on our own. We fend for ourselves, right? But yeah, every state essentially has some form of Farm to School program.
Okay, good.
Do you see more, and I'm still thinking the Class A, Class B school mindset, right? I'm that old. But do you see more smaller schools that have the connections for the Farm to School versus our larger Class A schools, or is it really a mixture of?
It's really a mixture of, thinking about, like, for West Fargo Public Schools, they work with, anywhere from 4 to 5 on average different producers, and then beyond what they're already purchasing from North Dakota companies. Sometimes, they might be working, in this area. Obviously, they could be working in Minnesota, with Minnesota producers, and that's just fine too. We want to make sure that we're supporting both, especially because, you're right on the line, right? But really, it is a mixture of both. We have small districts that it might work a little bit better because maybe the labor is there and it's not so maybe cumbersome. You think about how many meals Fargo Public or West Fargo Public serves, and all of the tedious work it would take to cut up a watermelon to make sure that every single student would have access to that. That's going to take a lot of labor versus, where I'm from, Animus Elementary, we serve 74 students. Cutting up a watermelon, it could be 2 watermelons, and essentially that's or 3 watermelons. So there is a mixture of both, and like I said, that's kind of the beauty of the program. They're going to each their own. They're going to make it impactful as much as they can. But we do have larger districts that want to do it, and regardless whether you're small or large, all of our schools, whether they're public or private, are doing their hardest to make sure that our children are eating healthy. They have meal patterns to follow. They want to purchase more local, but they have such tight budgets to work with too. So, it's they have a lot of decisions to make in a day. But at the end of the day, just so like our kids are taken care of. They are fed well, whether they're able to get a lot of farm to school products in or whether they're not.
And I know this doesn't fall in your realm, Amanda, but if you are a gardener in the summer and you have an overrun of produce, and I know it's not just zucchini, you can actually contact your local food pantries.
Yes.
For instance, I'm only 20 miles from the rural Cass County Emergency Food Pantry, and I know that I can take things there as well. So if my school's not in session, I have the opportunity to take that to somewhere else because someone will take that. It shouldn't just be hitting the compost pile, right?
Exactly. And the Department of Ag has a program that's partnered with our food pantries. It's like Grow an Extra Row, I think it's called. So, I mean, there's a lot of options for that. But yeah, I always have extra produce from my garden. And I have a tiny one. So yeah, if you have extra, think about your schools, think about your daycares. There's somebody in town that's maybe running, even it's an in-home daycare with 20 kids. They're probably they're going to love to receive some of that. So yeah, there's definitely options to not have any food waste.
Excellent. Amanda, how can folks reach out to you when they have further questions and maybe want to pursue something like this in their community?
Yeah. So easiest is to email me, Olson, AMOLSON at nd.gov. Contact me anytime, or you can reach out to me at 701-328-0817. Contact me. I work with producers, I work with schools, I work with daycares. If it's not something that I can do, I can partner you with the Department of Agriculture as well. They have a local foods marketing specialist, so we work really well together as a team. And so we're ready to enhance farm to school in the state, and it takes really everybody. So thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much, Amanda. Thank you so much. Well, when we come back, we'll do another recap on the weather. I know Bridgette's got a couple more ag topics to hit as well, and we'll even take a look into Easter weekend. I know a lot of people traveling over Easter weekend. We'll have a kind of a sneak peek on what that looks like. That and more coming up right after the break. And welcome back to Weather and Ag in Focus on this Thursday afternoon, Friday Eve. Temperatures out there in the mid-40s across much of the area as we're socked in clouds, but all the precip is pretty much winded down outside of a few pockets of drizzle out there. But we're looking at temperatures coming close to 50 today, so not going to move a whole lot from where we're at right now. But skies will clear tonight, and that's going to lead to a sunny and beautiful day tomorrow. Highs in the low 60s tomorrow. Winds shouldn't be that bad. They'll increase a little bit as we head into the afternoon. And then the weekend looks mild with more clouds. And temperatures on Saturday, mid-upper 60s. And then a few scattered showers come into the forecast as we head into Sunday. And then a brief cool down. It'll feel more like February on Monday. And then next week, we go on a warming trend. By the end of next week, we're in the 60s to near 70. I think Easter weekend will be mid-upper 60s, if not lower 70s around here. That's great news. And a few rain showers or thunderstorms coming in Easter Sunday, spreading in from the south. But I don't see any travel problems throughout the tri-state area, North, South Dakota, Minnesota, over this upcoming, not this weekend, but next weekend for Easter weekend. Some people travel, and looks like it's going to cooperate this year, so that's good news. I still am not going to go out on a limb and say we're totally done with snow yet, but we're getting there. We're getting closer and closer.
Well, that is very true. And one sure sign of closer and closer to spring is I saw a robin just a little earlier today.
No way.
Now,
already?
Oh, yeah. Saw him hanging out in the tree. He is much more welcome than barn swallows, because barn swallows on the farm, they're a gigantic pain. They tend to get into places they shouldn't be. They make a mess, etc. And so there's actually 8 different species of barn swallows in North America. Believe it or not, as well, just because they're a pest and they want to nest on your overhangs. They leave remnants behind on your equipment in barns and sheds. Did you know that actually, because they're a migratory bird, the Migratory Bird Treaty Act of 1918 makes it a federal crime to hunt, kill, capture, sell, or otherwise hurt a migratory bird.
Really?
Many of us who shot barn swallows as kids, like with BB guns and stuff, just went, huh, so I really am a felon. But anyway, you can actually, even to get rid of those swallows, those barn swallows, you're going to have to cover those nesting areas so they can't get into them. You can hang some vinyl plastic strips that will scare them, try to keep them away. You can add bird spikes or other barriers that prevent them from making their nests where they shouldn't, and certainly removing the old nest helps to keep them out of where they don't need to be. But yes, believe it or not, barn swallows, as much of a pest as they are, they really could be protected by a federal act. Who knew?
And speaking, you saw the first robin yesterday, and these guys were way up. I mean, they weren't low flying. The geese were flying north back into Canada.
Well, I'm glad they were flying, because the one yesterday on the street down on Veterans Boulevard, he was just walking across 3 lanes of traffic.
Just taking his old sweet time, huh?
Wasn't in much of a hurry from what I could see. Yeah, nice work there, guy.
Yeah,
Thanks
right.
a lot.
Hey, they do what they want.
So,
they're in their own little world.
boy, aren't they ever murder chickens out to get us all.
Right?
Okay. So as a meteorologist, Dean, I've read that there are 2 hottest months at the Earth's equator. What are they?
Okay, say that again. You cut out there for a little bit. The 2 hottest months at the
equator.
The 2 hottest months. This is a trick question, because you would think it'd be.
I don't know.
You would think it'd be July, August. Equal.
No.
Yeah, I know. That would be the first thing that come into mind. I'm gonna say January and February.
Actually, okay, and we got to talk this through. March and September. Is that because of the tilt?
Equinox? Because it's the equinox, so the sun's direct rays fall on the equator during that makes total sense. I thought it was a trick question. Addison, did you know that? He's clapping in there. Did you know? He's not saying it. That makes total sense, though. Right on the equinox. That's a great question. So for Bridgette, myself, want to thank everybody for joining us. Don't go anywhere. The Jay Thomas Show is coming up next.